Hey,
Okay, there we go.
technology, right?
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Is school and everything going okay?
Yeah. I think the online has actually been fairly ideal. So
I'm
for me.
excited to get into this and learn more about it. Why don't just for sake, just introduce yourself and let the audience know where you're at in school, and so they can get a feel for who they're hearing from tonight.
Well, I'm Macey. I'm a junior in high school here in Portland. I have an IEP, and my school is currently doing a hybrid that you can choose to join or not to join. If you did choose to join, it would be 2 days a week for, I believe, like an hour and a half each time.
Okay.
But the classes are still over Zoom, which is a little confusing. But if you chose to go into the hybrid program, you would still attend classes in the morning on Zoom, and in the afternoon, you would go in, see the teachers, see other students for extra help.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to make sure I understand this correctly, like you're
Yeah.
still going into the classroom and jumping on a computer in order to learn. That's the learning environment if you're going in.
Yes, that would be
Uh,
the learning environment.
okay, so before we get to your decision of how you've chosen to kind of navigate your school, what was school like for you going into the classroom, and how'd you feel in that environment pre-pandemic?
Pre-pandemic. Yeah. Well, I always struggled being in the classroom because as a dyslexic child, I had a lot of fears with going to school and getting bullied and feeling less than other kids. So that kind of has traveled with me throughout the years. And so even in high school, being in class can sometimes be a little bit nerve wracking and be a little bit tricky. But I have to say, I'm a very social person. So I absolutely love being around people all day. And that aspect has always been really good.
Yeah, so it, are you so you're comfortable in the social environment outside of the classroom within the school system then? But it's
Yeah.
that actually being in the classroom that where that the
Yeah.
challenges come from either previous experiences in the classroom being a difficult or I don't did you have to popcorn read in
Yes, the
oh
popcorn reading. Yeah, the anxieties of a little kid who wants to be like the other kids, the struggles.
and then did you experience getting pulled out of the classroom for certain periods versus being in the class? Okay.
Yes, yeah. Like many other dyslexics, I was pulled out during class a lot.
Yeah, so I think for a lot of first-time listeners, a lot of the stories that you'll hear from our student panel members, and then I've experienced too, is you're in the classroom for part of the period, and then you're pulled out to go to specialized reading, or whether you go to the resource room to have a study period. So there is that challenge of navigating that environment and not necessarily being comfortable. And that sounds like it's been your experience too.
Yeah, certainly. And we didn't have a great program, so when I did get pulled out of class, it was kind of like putting me further behind. Not only am I further behind already, but I'm missing out on classroom time where I could potentially be learning.
I wanted to ask, was there anything about the classroom that you did like?
Hmm. Well, I mean, aside from having friends all around me,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. I guess there's not a whole lot that I love about the structure of school.
Yeah.
So,
No, that
yeah,
it makes sense, right? Like the social
yeah,
aspect, you're a social person, like that totally makes sense. But when it's time to work or perform and you're put in an environment that isn't made for you and essentially excludes you from the learning environment, that can be a challenge.
yes.
So you have this decision to make, right? You can stay,
Hmm.
you can get back into the school classroom setting, or you can go to the hybrid model, or you can go to the online model and avoid being in that hybrid situation. And where did you land?
Yeah, well, I certainly went back and forth, but with the way that my school has chosen to roll out this hybrid program, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me to go. I'm actually doing pretty well this year in school, so I'm not needing that extra one-on-one, like face-to-face help. Yeah, so I think it'll be good for a lot of students to be able to get in and meet the teacher, sit down with them and work on stuff. But for me, I just don't need that. So yeah.
And do you feel like you're, I guess, more productive or more efficient or learning at a higher level through the online portal?
That's a good question. I would say that I'm learning at like the level, which for me is a high level.
Yeah,
The
okay,
past
fair.
years, I'm down here, but now I'm kind of like right up here, that is the goal.
So you're competitive. I mean, and I don't want to say competitive in like the sense you're you're playing against people, but you're able to compete at at your grade level, and you're able to participate at your grade level and be functional at your grade level.
Yes, yeah, I'm functioning really well at my grade level. And I think the beauty of online school is that it's kind of at my pace when I choose. I'm a very strong-willed person, so sitting down in a seat for 7 hours and being told what to do all day is not my favorite thing.
I could see that, and I've had the pleasure of hearing Macey as well as other students talk from the student panel perspective when we were in live settings, and it is, I mean, you're right there with them, and there's a sense of that control and that wanting to do things. You know how you will best learn, right? You know how you're going to best perform. So it is kind of being in that, having that ability. I was going to ask because it sounds like you're just way more in control of your
Yeah,
learning.
yeah, it's like send me on my way. Let me do this. I got it.
From, I guess, the emotional standpoint, how's that been? Like, has that changed how you've gone about learning, or has that changed how you even thought about being in a learning environment?
Oh, yeah, I think this was kind of, for a while, this was like, oh, that would be the dream, working on my own schedule, not having too much homework, like very little face to face, people just talking at you. And while that has been really great, I think I've learned that it's like, you know what, I really do like being in the classroom and doing the group work with my friends, making these new connections and relationships, and really having a deeper relationship with your teacher, which is something I've taken for granted in past years. But this year's a little harder.
Totally. So, in an ideal world, what does your learning environment look like? Like, if you could just, okay, scratch everyone, we're going to start the whole process over, and this is what my learning environment's going to look like. What is that picture?
Oh, well, I think it would probably be a lot of kind of choose your own day. Um, there obviously has to be a lot of, a certain amount of teaching, but I think, in middle school, they had this program that I believe was called the flipped classroom that they tried to use in my math classes, which was essentially when you were in the classroom, the teachers were just there to help you through the homework. And they would send you home with several videos to watch about lessons that you would then take notes on and come to class with. And then they would hand you homework papers. So I think that model, it really worked for me. And so I guess if I had the choice of how I was going to learn, it would probably look pretty similar to that.
It just sounds like it's so balanced with you, right? Like having some FaceTime, but not let it all be FaceTime, or having some videos, but don't let the whole thing be videos, and having some group work, but don't let and I think that makes a lot of sense because that's kind of like a more natural setting. It's not all one way, or like sit at the desk and wait for your turn to read, and then you're sitting with your palms sweating because you're going to get called. Or that's how I was sitting, so I don't want to put words in your
No,
mouth, but that's
absolutely.
how.
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
um what would you like educators to know about from maybe this last year of you've kind of sounds like you're kind of understanding how you learn best. What would you like educators to know?
Um, well, I guess I had an experience earlier this year with some family friends that have a dyslexic child, and their daughter had been diagnosed with dyslexia years before, and they had never gotten her any sort of technology. They didn't know about any of it. So what I would like educators to know is what they can provide. So if you're a teacher out there, it's really important that you know how to help your students. You know about Bookshare and Read2Go and Easy Spelling Aid. And you can offer that up when students are struggling.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you about assistive technology that you've
Mhm.
found helpful during your learning process, but maybe even more so now that you're on totally online.
Yeah. Well, I think it's remained pretty similar. I'm a big fan of audiobooks. I use Read2Go through Bookshare. Those are my favorite. And then I also use Easy Spelling Aid, which is really popular, just spelling app. Yeah, and I think those are the two big ones. I also use dictation. Um, that's pretty much it.
How have you, I was curious about dictation because it's come a long way since maybe I was back
Yes.
in
Oh
school.
yeah.
What have you found helpful about it, and where do you use it the most?
Yeah. I honestly I use it a lot in text.
Okay.
Um, or in smaller things. I used to use it when I was in middle school. I would write entire papers just dictating it all.
Wow.
Um, yeah, there were a lot of mistakes made, lots of wrong words, all of that. But now I use it mostly if I'm sending a text and I have a word in my head that I'm like, I need to, like, this is the word that's going to fit this sentence, and I have no idea how to spell it. I find that to be really helpful. And I don't even need to go open up my spelling app for that.
That's awesome. And it's great that you're getting experience using that technology now versus down the road.
Yeah.
Where, for students that may be uncomfortable advocating for themselves or asking for the things they need or even using technology in the classroom when, pre-pandemic or when people are back in a hybrid model or go full-time school, what advice would you have for those students?
Hmm. Well, I think, dyslexia is always going to be a struggle. It's always going to be tricky. But there are things out there that are going to make it easier. So looking for the things that help you get to your path to success. That's what's helped me the most. It's all really individualized. So finding your technology, maybe using a planner works for you, maybe it doesn't. There's so many different things like that out there, and it's really just a matter of finding it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more trial and error and playing with the things. There's no silver bullet to kind of fix
No.
it, but there are some definite things. I want to mention some comments that have been made since you've talked. You have a ton of educators that agree with your direction on education, and Ms. Shelby Park points out that you are an amazing advocate, and the work that you've done on the student panel is just so important because you're changing the culture for people that are coming after you, and that's just so huge.
Yeah.
What, as we wrap up tonight,
Hmm.
you get the final word.
Okay.
You've chosen your educational path. You've come into your own environment with education, and you're also advocating for others. But what's your message for the world? Like, what's your wish?
Totally. I was thinking about this, and I've always found in my life that a lot of things can be explained really well by metaphors and things like that, and that's helped me a lot through dyslexia. So my favorite thing is dyslexia is a time disability, and it's like that when you're doing a test, but it's also like that in life. So I think of dyslexia as the path to the path to success. It's like going on a hike to get to the trailhead for another hike. And, it kind of sucks sometimes because you're pretty worn out by the time you get to the actual hike. But, you learn a lot with that extra travel time. And by the time you are at the trailhead, you know what you're doing. So yeah, if I could say anything, it's that it takes us a little longer, but by the time we get there, we know what we're doing and we're ready to start.
That is an amazing metaphor, and I'm hoping I can borrow that from you from time to time because it relates so well to some of the endeavors that I've done, and it speaks to the endurance that you have and the determination that I've seen from your talks on the student panel, from your talks tonight, or from the messages that you've dropped tonight. It's just so awesome. And Jane Cooper, our past president, mentions that, and our current president, Daniel Thompson, just thanks you from the bottom of her heart. So we wish you all the best as you continue navigating the online learning, and just wish you all the success.
Thank you.
You have a great night.
Okay, thanks. Bye.